Hello everyone, hope you are good and be happy always. Once again, welcome to Shachi's Academy, and today we will discuss what are different kinds of demand. Demand, you can say, is the most important portion of your managerial economics. Why? Because if there is no demand, there will be no purchases in the market, people will not produce to sell in the markets, and there will be no factories, no industries, no production of any type, and there will be no employment for people. So it is most important component for managerial economics and for your economy of a nation, of world as well. So here we discuss our types of demand. Before that, we can discuss the definition very quickly. That is, what is demand? Demand for a commodity is the quantity. That is, quantity is most important. What quantity you are going to purchase? Quantity which a consumer is willing to buy at a given price in a given period of time. So what is most important here? The quantity is important, and that is important for managerial economics also. I told you beforehand also, if you want to study managerial economics, then you need to think like a manager. So what he has to concentrate upon, that is first the quantity, then what is the price at which people will be willing to buy in the markets, and then comes your period of time. What will be the time period? That is 1 month, 1 day, 1 year, or a fortnight. So we need to see that also. So what are the most important elements of demand? That is your quantity, price and time, and for that we have framed a code QPT. Quantity, we have already discussed. People demand different types of quantities at different prices, because price is having inverse relationship with quantity. If prices are high, people will demand lower quantity of commodities. So quantity and price have inverse relationship. Then comes the time. So time is also very important. At any particular time period, what is the demand for any particular household? So we need to discuss different kinds of demand now. So here, for types of demand, we have framed a code, that is ICAM, IM, ICAR, JR, PIC. You can say IM, ICAR, Junior PIC or JR PIC also. This will help you to memorize all the different kinds of demand. So here for IM we have individual and market demand. Then for IC we have industry and company demand. For AD we have autonomous and derived demand. For JR we have joint and rival demand. PIC means your price demand, income demand, cross demand. Cross demand is really very important. We need to discuss it really very nicely. Now, individual market demand, we already know what is individual. What is the meaning of individual? That means a single person, or you can say a single household. What is the demand of a single household? For the definition, you can say that individual demand is that quantity of particular individual which he demands at a given price in a given period of time. That is the definition then. For market, what you can say? What is market? Market is just like online market, you can say, offline markets, you can say, where the transaction of goods and services take place in lieu of money. You give money and you take the commodities. That is the transaction. That means the process of transaction takes place. So here market demand means the demand for all the consumers in a given market at a given price in a given period of time. What is that? Quantity demanded by all the consumers in the market at a given price in a given period of time. The definition is so simple. You can frame your own definitions by taking all these three elements. So these elements are very important. Okay, then we have industry and company demand. What is industry? See, industry is a group of firms. You can say, if any given country, if you take India, India has a sugar industry of its own. So there are many firms, thousands and thousands of firms which are located in different states of India, which form the sugar industry of India. So here, what is the quantity demanded for any particular industry? You can say, what is industry demand is the quantity demanded for a particular industry at a given price in a given period of time. Then, what is company demand? So there may be any industry. You can say our paste industry, toothpaste industry, you can say, okay, or you can say toiletry industry. In that particular section we have toothpaste. Demand for toothpaste for in the country or for in industry is different from a company. There are many companies which are manufacturing and producing toothpaste in India. You can say Colgate, you can say Dabur, Vico, Vajradanti and Pepsodent. So demand for all these companies is different. Say for example, in 1 month there is demand for 100 lakh packets of toothpaste for different quantities. You can say packets are of different quantities. So here we can say the Quantity demanded for Colgate will be different, for Dabur will be different, Vico and Preston will be different. So this whole demand in 1 month is shared by all these companies. So demand for industry is bigger than demand for different companies. So different demand, quantity demanded for any particular company at a given price in a given period of time is known as company demand, and quantity demanded for a given industry at a given price in a given period of time is known as industry demand. It is larger than your company demand always. Then comes your autonomous demand and derived demand. What is autonomous word meaning? That means on itself. Okay, so it exists on its own. Like you can say demand for food. We all are human beings and we demand food for ourselves. So demand for food like burgers, chips and beverages etc. is our autonomous demand. And demand for autonomous is done by consumers. Say for example, we demand food, we demand bikes and cars and yachts, everything we demand. So there are n numbers of demand of consumers. So autonomous demand is a consumer demand that commodities which satisfies our demand and gives satisfaction, directly quenches our that means thirst for anything or need for anything, right? So it is consumer demand, maybe your market demand or individual demand. Consumer demand is of two types. Consumer demand means your individual demand or maybe market demand as well. Okay, so here food, bike and car demand is your consumer demand, and for that you can say autonomous demand is done by consumers. So AC is the code for autonomous demand. Autonomous demand, consumers, right? Then when we produce all these things, who produces all these things? Producers produce and they need some raw material. So demand for raw materials which is done due to demand of these type of commodities to produce them is known as derived demand, because it is derived on the basis of this autonomous demand. So demand which is derived from the demand from other commodities is known as your derived demand. Why? Because demand for white flour is demanded, it has increased because of demand for your pizzas, burgers, bread, cookies, etc. Demand for steel exists or has been done due to demand for your bikes or cars or ships and yachts, etc. Demand for wood is done due to demand for furniture in or for construction industry, etc. So this is the demand which is done by producers to produce different types of goods and services. You can say intermediate goods are your derived demands, right? Then comes your joint and rival demand. What is joint? That means they are demanded in combined manner. What are the things which are used in combined manner in your nearby vicinity? You can say here I am using pen and marker. Pen and ink. There is ink in this marker and I am using it. So this is joint demand. Say for demand for car and petrol is also your joint demand. Demand for bread and butter is joint demand. Demand for bread and jam, etc. Demand for, you can say, camera and lenses of camera is a joint demand. So there may be n number of demands in your locality, in your nearby vicinity, which happens due to some other company. They are demanded jointly, you can say. Okay, so this is known as joint demand. They are demanded in combined manner. Then rival demand, which are competing demands. Say for example, when things are being competed by one another. Say for example here steel. Steel is demanded by construction industry. Steel is demanded by shipping industry. Steel is demanded by utensil industry. Utensil, you can say glasses, you can say bottles here, or cookers are made of steel, etc. So this is the demand for your rival demand, you can say. Okay, steel demand is rival demand, and demand for cement is also rival demand. Cement is demand for making bridges, constructing bridges, for in construction industry, for constructing houses, etc. So it is your rival demand, because companies or the sectors are competing for their demand. Okay, so this is rival demand. Now comes the section of your price demand, income demand and cross demand. These are very important types of demand here. Price is having inverse relationship with your quantity demanded. What happens when your price increases? Automatically your demand for any particular commodity decreases. Take for example, during summers in India, apples become quite expensive because that is a seasonal food and that is not available in summers. So it is available in winters only. So what happens to its demand? Its demand decreases. Why? Because its price soars very high in India and during summers. And for some other commodities also, when price of any particular commodity rises, its demand decreases, right? Except necessities like salt, sugar, etc. They are necessities and their demand will not compulsorily decrease. very easily. Then comes your income demand. Income demand, what is the relationship between price and income and quantity demand? It is positive relationship. When you are not so earning so well, so you will be demanding lesser amount of commodities. But when you earn well, when you start earning a larger amount of money, lot of money, so what happens to your demand? The demand for everything rises. So there is direct relationship or positive relationship between your income and demand. So here price, relationship between price and demand is inverse. Income, relationship between income and demand is positive. Okay, so graph for your price demand is negative sloping. That is the normal demand curve we have studied in our books. And income demand is your positively sloped curve. Here, positively sloping from left to right. Okay. Then except inferior goods. What are inferior goods? Inferior goods are cheap commodities like coarse grains, substandard commodities, demand for which decreases when your income increases. When you become rich, you stop using those commodities. That is known as inferior commodity. We'll discuss it later on in the section of Griffin's paradox. Okay. Then comes your cross demand. What is cross demand? Here the definition: when demand for a commodity depends on price of some other commodity, it is called cross demand. Demand for any particular commodity when depends on price of another commodity, that is known as cross demand. How? Because substitutes and complementary are those type of commodities. What are substitutes? Take for example tea and coffee. They are substitutes because if we feel like having some hot beverage, we can either consume coffee or tea or some other kava etc. also. But here you can see what are they? They are simply the substitutes of one another. In India, we have Colgate and Vico Vajranti. They are toothpaste. They can be used in lieu of one another. Why? Because the main purpose is brushing our teeth. So we can brush our teeth either by using Colgate toothpaste or Vico Vajranti. So they are substitutes. In college also, what happens when there is sub-C? You can say, Mishra sir will not take maths today. Some other Mathur sir will take our maths. So what is the main purpose? Teaching. So purpose has been served, so that is substitute. So substitutes are the commodities that are used in place of one another. Here, when increase, what is the relationship of price and demand over here? When increase in price of one commodity leads to increase in demand for another commodity. Here, say, price of one commodity has been taken, one substitute has been taken and quantity of another substitute has been taken. Here, demand. It is demand, okay? This is not price. This is Colgate. Colgate. Here price of Vico Vajranti has been taken. Take for example, if price of Vico rises, people will stop consuming that Vico Vajranti toothpaste and the consumers who were consuming this will shift towards the consumption of Colgate. So what happens to the demand of Colgate? It rises. So here, rise in price of Vico Vajranti has led to increase in demand for the toothpaste of Colgate company. So what is happening? This company is gaining, because the price of one company has increased. So this is how price for substitutes and demand for substitutes is done. Okay, it happens. That is the relationship. Then comes the complementary goods. You can take complementary goods as joint commodities. That is the joint demand. How? Because complementary commodities are the commodities which are used jointly. Take for example bread and butter, bread and jam, car petrol, or your ink and marker. Just now I told you lens and your camera. So these are all joint demands, and you can take the example of your normal demand curve, that is for your complementary demand. How? Because its curve is also negative sloping. But there's one difference. Price of one commodity is taken and here demand for another commodity is taken. In a normal demand curve, what happens? Price of the same commodity is taken whose demand is being taken. So here the main difference is price of one commodity and demand for another commodity is taken. Take for example, car and petrol are your complementary goods. Here price of car is being taken and petrol is being taken and demand for cars is taken. When price of petrol rises, it moves towards your higher, northward, it moves towards upper level. Okay, so here rising in price of petrol causes lower demand of your cars. So demand for cars decreases when your price of petrol rises. Why? Because if petrol becomes expensive, people will tend to use lesser number of cars and they will purchase less cars. So here, increase in price of complementary goods have negative effect on the demand for their uses. Okay. So So here, I hope this topic has been understood by you, and if there is any problem, you can certainly send in comments. Thank you for watching this video, and thank you for subscribing. Take a screenshot. Thank you so much. Take care. God bless you.